Welcome to Life Tells Stories, where we bring you tales that captivate your heart and mind. Today we're diving into an incredible story of deceit, betrayal, and unexpected redemption, a tale of greed, secrets, and the true value of life. Imagine attending your late wife's funeral, only to find out just days later that your dream of a luxurious future is about to be shattered. What would you do if the inheritance you'd counted on suddenly slipped through your fingers? Would you fight for what you believe is yours? Or would you face a truth too painful to bear? If you're intrigued by life-changing decisions and powerful stories of redemption, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Life Tells Stories for more unforgettable journeys. As the sun blazes over the city of Los Angeles, mourners gather around a freshly dug grave. Andrew Preston, a well-dressed man with a look of well-practiced sorrow, stands by the coffin of his late wife Maria Preston. At his side, standing slightly apart, is his striking secretary, Vanessa Moore. Andrew's face, while solemn, hides an inner light of anticipation that no one seems to notice. He tosses a handful of earth onto the coffin, murmuring the words, "Rest in peace, Maria," but his eyes lack emotion. His heart isn't mourning Maria's death. Instead, it's set on the large inheritance he believes is about to come his way. Not far behind him, Vanessa meets his gaze. A silent, unspoken promise passes between them. For Andrew, Maria's sudden passing is nothing but a door to a new life of luxury and freedom. Vanessa, with her form-fitting black dress and glances full of meaning, symbolizes the future he plans to embrace, without his late wife. As the funeral continues, Andrew is approached by several mourners, colleagues, distant relatives, and friends of Maria, offering condolences and kind words. He accepts each with a practiced solemnity, shaking hands and nodding in thanks, but his thoughts are far from the funeral. He thinks about Maria's estate, her properties, her investments, and what he imagines his life will look like now that she's gone. Vanessa, meanwhile, keeps her distance, offering quiet nods of sympathy to the mourners but staying within Andrew's line of sight, always present, always waiting. The two of them exchange a look across the gravesite, a shared understanding that, despite the sad occasion, they are on the cusp of something better. The priest, an elderly man with a voice worn from years of service, finishes the final prayers, and the ceremony draws to a close. The mourners begin to disperse, and Andrew takes a deep breath, almost feeling the weight of Maria's memory lifting from his shoulders. Vanessa approaches him, resting a hand on his arm, and whispers, "It's almost over." Andrew nods, his eyes narrowing in determination. "Yes," he says, "almost." The next day, Andrew and Vanessa enter the courthouse, ready to discuss Maria's will with her attorney. They are confident, practically envisioning the riches they would soon be able to access. They sit in the waiting room, Andrew's hand casually resting on Vanessa's as they share a private smile. For Andrew, this is just a formality, a step toward claiming what he believes is rightfully his. Vanessa is equally confident, her thoughts already filled with the luxuries that will soon be at their disposal. However, their anticipation is quickly shattered. Attorney Robert Harris enters the room, his expression serious as he invites them to sit down. Andrew feels a pang of anxiety as Robert opens the folder containing Maria's will, but he quickly dismisses it. There's nothing to worry about, he tells himself. But as the lawyer begins to speak, the reality becomes clear. Robert informs Andrew that Maria changed her will just days before she passed away. A cold chill runs down Andrew's spine, and Vanessa's confident smile falters. Suddenly Maria's nephew, Kevin, enters the room. Kevin was always Maria's favorite, a fact that irked Andrew throughout their marriage. Now seeing Kevin at the courthouse makes Andrew's heart sink further. The young man's presence, his red-rimmed eyes and determined expression, suggests that this is about to get even more complicated. The lawyer reads out the contents of the will. Maria, once planning to leave most of her estate to Andrew, has made significant changes. The will now states that 60% of her fortune is to be donated to various charities that were close to her heart. Andrew is stunned. Vanessa grips his arm, her face tight with disbelief. This is more than half of what he thought was secure in his pocket. The future they had imagined for themselves, lavish vacations, a new home, freedom from all financial concerns, suddenly feels like it's slipping away. Kevin sits quietly, almost as if he knew exactly what was coming. Andrew, bewildered and furious, demands to see the documentation. He receives a copy of the will but finds no immediate errors or loopholes he can exploit. His dreams of an easy life with Vanessa are crumbling before his eyes, and a sense of desperation starts to settle in. What had Maria known? and why had she made these changes? Andrew leaves the courthouse with Vanessa, both of them too stunned to speak. They find themselves sitting in the car, the weight of the lawyer's words still sinking in. Vanessa breaks the silence first. "What are we going to do now?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. Andrew clenches his jaw, a flash of anger crossing his face. "We fight this," he replies. "There's gotta be a way to undo this." She must have been influenced. Maybe she wasn't of sound mind. "We need someone who can help us find a loophole." Vanessa nods, though her expression is filled with uncertainty. She tries to mask her fear, but the confidence she usually radiates is gone. The two of them sit in silence for a moment before Andrew finally starts the car and drives away, his mind already racing for solutions. Back at his luxurious home, Andrew paces the living room. He knows he can't take this lying down. He has to find someone who can help, someone who knows the ins and outs of the law, someone who isn't afraid to dig deep and bend the rules if needed. He decides to reach out to an old acquaintance, Hank Ramirez, a private detective he once worked with during his early years in Los Angeles. Andrew calls Hank and the two arrange to meet the next day. Hank is a man who has always had his ear to the ground, a private investigator who knows how to find secrets that others would rather keep hidden. Andrew knows that if there is anything suspicious about Maria's decision, Hank will find it. The following day, Andrew and Vanessa meet Hank in a smoky back room of a bar on the outskirts of Los Angeles. Hank is older now, his face lined from years of chasing secrets and uncovering lies. He listens to Andrew's story, nodding occasionally, but there's a look in his eyes that tells Andrew that Hank knows more than he's letting on. Hank agrees to dig into Maria's last weeks, looking for anything that could help. He takes notes, asking Andrew and Vanessa questions about Maria's behavior in the weeks before her death. "Did she seem different? Did she mention anything out of the ordinary?" he asks. Andrew, frustrated, shakes his head. "She was just Maria," he replies. "She didn't act like she knew anything." As Hank begins his investigation, he uncovers something that sends shockwaves through Andrew's plans. Maria had hired her own private investigator before her death. She knew about Andrew's affair with Vanessa, and she had made changes to her will in response. Hank delivers the news with a calm, almost detached demeanor. "She knew," Hank says, "she knew everything, and she made sure you wouldn't get what you were hoping for." Andrew feels the words like a punch to the gut. He looks at Vanessa, whose face has gone pale. "What do we do now?" Vanessa asks, her voice shaky. Hank leans back in his chair looking at them both. "That's up to you," he says. "But you're stepping into dangerous waters, kid. It's not going to be as easy as you thought." As Hank's investigation deepens, he uncovers something even more shocking. Vanessa isn't who she claims to be. Hank calls Andrew to meet him in person and reveals that Vanessa has a history, a pattern of entering relationships with wealthy, powerful men, only for those men to end up losing everything. Hank lays out the evidence, old photos, documents, and even testimonies from Vanessa's past partners. It becomes clear that Vanessa has been playing a game far more dangerous than Andrew had realized. Andrew feels a mix of emotions: anger, betrayal, and disbelief. He thought Vanessa was his partner, someone who wanted to build a future with him, but now it seems she has used him as a pawn. He confronts Vanessa later that night, showing her the evidence that Hank gathered. Vanessa doesn't deny it. Instead, her demeanor changes. The warm, supportive partner he thought he knew is gone, replaced by someone cold and calculating. "You're just another one of them, Andrew," she says, her voice devoid of emotion. "A means to an end." Her admission stuns Andrew. He realizes that he has been manipulated from the very beginning, that Vanessa never truly cared for him. She was just using him to get what she wanted. Feeling utterly alone and betrayed, Andrew decides to confront Kevin. Kevin was always close to Maria, and Andrew has a feeling that Kevin knows more than he's letting on. He arranges to meet Kevin in Maria's old study, a room filled with memories, books, photographs, and Maria's favorite flowers still in vases around the room. The atmosphere is heavy, and Andrew feels a pang of nostalgia as he steps inside. Kevin is already there, sitting in one of the armchairs. He looks up as Andrew enters, his expression guarded. "Did you know about Maria's will?" Andrew demands, his voice raw with frustration. Kevin nods calmly. "She told me everything," he says. "She didn't want her legacy to be wasted. She wanted to protect what she built from people like you." Andrew clenches his fists, his anger bubbling to the surface. "People like me?" he repeats. "I was her husband. I had a right to what she built. Kevin shakes his head, a hint of sadness in his eyes. You didn't love her, Andrew. You loved what she could give you, that's why she made the changes. Andrew, desperate to understand, asks, what would she want me to do now? Kevin pauses before responding. Honor her wishes, if you ever cared about her at all. The conversation plants a seed in Andrew's heart. For the first time, he begins to wonder if there's another path, one that doesn't involve fighting or trying to manipulate his way to the top. Is there a way he can make amends? Andrew spends a sleepless night, haunted by the memories of his late wife and the revelations about Vanessa. He finds Maria's diary in her study, tucked away in a drawer. He hesitates for a moment but then opens it, desperate for answers. In its pages he finds entries that reveal Maria's heartbreak over his betrayal, but also her hope that he might change. The entries bring Andrew to tears. Maria had known everything, his affair, his plans, his deceit, yet she still hoped he would become a better man. She wrote about her love for him, how she wished they could have been happy together, and how she ultimately decided to change her will, not out of spite, but out of a desire to protect what she had worked so hard to build. The realization hits Andrew hard. Maria had known everything, yet she still hoped he would change. The thought breaks him. For the first time in a long time, Andrew feels regret, not just for the inheritance slipping through his hands, but for the way he had betrayed a woman who genuinely loved him. In that moment, he makes a decision. He will withdraw his challenge to the will and dedicate himself to fulfilling Maria's wishes. Andrew officially withdraws his challenge to the will. He contacts Kevin, telling him of his decision to help carry out Maria's charitable projects. Kevin is skeptical at first, but after seeing Andrew's determination, he agrees to let him help. Andrew throws himself into the charitable work. He helps establish schools in underserved areas, clinics that provide healthcare to those who need it most, and micro-loan programs that empower women entrepreneurs. Each project becomes a step toward redemption for Andrew, each one a way of making amends for his past. He attends meetings, talks to community leaders, and works tirelessly to make a difference. He finds that, for the first time in his life, he feels fulfilled, not by the prospect of wealth or luxury, but by the knowledge that he is doing something meaningful. The people he helps are grateful, and he begins to see the impact that Maria's vision is having on their lives. If you were in Andrew's shoes, would you do the same? Let us know in the comments. Can a person truly change, or are they always defined by their mistakes? Vanessa isn't one to give up easily. Angry that Andrew has pulled away from her and chosen a different path, she tries to blackmail him. She contacts the press, attempting to leak details of their affair, but Kevin's connections ensure that the story never makes it to the media. Vanessa's fury reaches its peak as she realizes that Andrew has cut ties completely. Without her usual tools of manipulation and with no support, she decides to leave Los Angeles. She vanishes from Andrew's life, leaving only a bitter memory of betrayal. Andrew, instead of feeling victorious, only feels a deep sadness for the choices that led them both here. He reflects on his own mistakes and Vanessa's, how their greed and ambition had led them down such a destructive path. His focus, however, remains on honoring Maria and the new mission he has set for himself. Despite Vanessa's attempts to ruin him, Andrew stays committed to his work, refusing to be distracted by her actions. Months later, Andrew finds himself at Maria's grave once again. This time, Kevin stands beside him, and the air between them is no longer tense. They place flowers on Maria's grave, the weight of the past still present, but lighter now. "I've made mistakes, Maria," Andrew whispers, his voice soft but steady. "Terrible mistakes that hurt you deeply. But I hope somehow you can see that I'm trying to make things right." Kevin, moved by his uncle's sincerity, places a hand on his shoulder. "I think she knows," Kevin says softly. "And I think she'd be proud of what you've accomplished." Andrew knows that he still has a long way to go, but for the first time he feels at peace. He realizes that Maria's true legacy isn't the fortune he almost lost, it's the lessons she taught him, even after her death. He has come to understand that true wealth isn't measured in money or possessions, but in what you give back to the world. As they leave the cemetery, Andrew and Kevin walk side by side. The sun is beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. It's a beautiful sight, a reminder that even after the darkest days, there is always the hope of a new dawn. "You know, Kevin," Andrew says as they approach the cemetery gates, "I think I finally understand what Maria always used to say about the true value of things." Kevin looks at him curiously. "What do you mean?" he asks. Andrew smiles, a bittersweet expression crossing his face. "She used to say that real wealth isn't in what you have but in what you give. I had to lose everything to really understand that." Kevin nods, respect clear in his expression. Aunt Maria was always wise. I'm glad you finally got her message. As they leave the cemetery, Andrew feels a sense of closure. One chapter of his life is ending, and another is beginning. He doesn't know exactly what the future holds, but one thing is certain. This time, he will honor Maria's legacy, not just with words, but with action. The sun dips behind the city skyline, giving way to the night, but for Andrew Preston, it feels like the start of a new day full of possibilities and the chance to finally get things right. Andrew's journey has taken him from greed and betrayal to humility and redemption. He learned painfully that the life he thought he wanted was built on lies and deceit, and in losing everything, he finally found what truly mattered: purpose, integrity, and the desire to make a positive difference. At Life Tells Stories, we believe that sometimes it takes losing everything to truly find yourself. If this story has moved you as much as it has moved us, please hit the like button and share this video with someone who could use a little inspiration today. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories about life, loss, and redemption. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay inspired.